Hello. Hello. Welcome to Everyday Ordinary Extraordinary Women. I am Martina and I'm here with Christina and we're your hosts. And we are deep divers and avid students of life and powerful facilitators for healing. In real life, I'm a life coach specializing in parent and women empowerment, and I'm also a sound healer.
I'm an intuitive healer who blends massage therapy and energy work to provide customized holistic services for my clients. Martina and I both love to incorporate crystals, essential oils, angelic Reiki, intuitive guidance, and oracle deck work into all of our work with our clients.
So let me tell you about the background. We were inspired to create this podcast after pondering on this question. What will the world look like where we can be inspired by every person? Usually we are so quick to compare and judge ourselves and others. And when we do that, everybody's losing. So depending on my point of view, I can either feel small because I come out lacking, or arrogant and dismissive because I feel superior. Those are the only two options. And neither of those options make us feel good. So here's our thought. Someone's everyday normal is someone else's extraordinary. Judgment comes from first impressions, and we invite you, the listener, to go beyond first impressions and see the magic everywhere. There's inspiration at every corner, in everyone, if we're willing to look. And today we're here with Rachel. So welcome, Rachel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, Martina and Christina. I'm so grateful to be here with you guys today on this warm, everywhere we are in the country, Wednesday afternoon. So my name is Rachel Lee, and I'm the founder of Ice Bath Boston and Breath, and I am on a mission to teach nervous system regulation skills, just like we teach people how to drive or how to learn our multiplication tables. And the tools that I use are breath work and ice baths. And I specialize also in breathing mechanics. So we talk about a million different ways to breathe, but are we ever focusing on how we breathe 21,000 times a day, and whether the muscles that we're using and the pace and whatnot, are those supporting our nervous system to make us feel safe? Or are they making us feel more in danger and more stressed than we need to be? And so with ice baths, what we like to do as well is I like to call ice the cold the best low stakes stressor. So you can practice stepping into fear, stepping into unknown, and reclaiming your response. And so this is the work that I do. I am right here in Boston, a little bit outside of it, right in Needham, and I have this little one-to-one office. I specialize with 60 and 90-minute appointments, deep diving into long-term work with individuals. And I am super passionate about this work because when I was living in Mexico, so I grew up in Boston, was a teacher for a little while. I was in Amman, Jordan for 3 years. And then I actually was in Argentina for a year. I was waiting to tell you this, Martina. I went to Mexico, to Tulum, and I had just moved there, and it was my second day. And I was trying to make friends, and I'm on this beach, and these people invite me to take an ice bath. And I said, like, I very, very intentionally moved from Boston to 100-degree heat. I had absolutely no desire to get the cold. And so the problem was I needed to make friends. Like, I needed community. And this was pretty much the only invite I had. So I said, sure, like, I'll go. And so a couple days later, I go and I walk up, and it's this dirt road in the Tulum jungle. And it's this dinky, like half collapsed, light blue inflatable ice bath. And the thing was, it looked pretty like crappy from the outside, but it was still overflowing with ice. And I was terrified. I was terrified. So I walk up, I watch everyone else go. And when it's finally my turn, I was guided by someone. I was guided how to breathe, what to think, every little nook and cranny step through that entire experience. And in that very first time, I actually stayed in for 6 minutes. And during those 6 minutes, I experienced a sense of inner safety, of self-worth, of self-confidence, and honestly, self-love. And those were sensations that I had been looking for a decade. Because 10 years earlier, 6 days after I graduated high school, and actually 14 years ago as of last Wednesday, I witnessed the death of my high school boyfriend in a car accident. And the fallout from that was severe anxiety and depression. And so to numb the pain, I was put on 4 medications: trazodone for sleep, Ritalin for ADHD, Celexa, and Wellbutrin for anti-anxiety. And I was medicated heavily for a decade. 1 pill to wake up, another go to sleep. Beat the cycle. And so for that stupid bucket of water, to have everything I had been looking for years on end, I was floored. I was honestly like shocked. And I just said, I don't know what happened, but I need more of this. And so I said, let's do a little experiment. Let's do breath work in an ice bath every day for 100 days. And let's see what happens with my life. And so I did. And I started to feel really good. And during that time, as I started to feel better, I reached out to my doctor and I said, hey, can we get off a couple of these? And she said, yes, like, let's take it at a slow pace. Let's listen to our body and let's see what happens. And so first, because every time after I got out of the ice bath, I was so energized and I was so motivated, we started tapering off of the Ritalin. And then because I was naturally getting sleepy at night and I wanted to go to bed, then we started tapering off the trazodone. And then because I was feeling good waking up, I was in a better mood, we tapered off the Celexa. And so in 3 months, I went from 4 medicines to 1. And I felt better than I ever had. And since then, I've dedicated my life to learning every single thing I can about cold water immersion and breath work, all kinds. I take a only scientific literature based approach. So the things that I teach, they are completely grounded in evidence. But the beautiful thing too is that there's a lot of soul work in this too. And so there's nervous system regulation, but there's also what thoughts do we need to rewire in our mind to make that somatic approach convince the body and mind that we are safe, that we are worthy, that we belong exactly as we are, because those are things we're not taught to think. And so that is how I got here. That is how I got to this little room right here. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Wow. That's such a beautiful story. I'm truly inspired by your story. But it's funny because I like to jot words down as you're talking. And as you're talking about your experience in the ice bath, I was like shocked. And then you go, and it shocked me. But I read shocked like more that it shocked your whole system, right? Like, so now you can, and if you can get through that initial response, right, where we initially go, oh, this isn't safe, right? And what do we do with that? We normally just want to jump out. But then you stayed there for 6 minutes and then had the intuition to add the breathwork piece, which really then started training how you respond to, am I safe, right? The whole story is so incredibly beautiful. I am inspired to now dip my toe into this cold water therapy because I am so clear about this nervous system regulation that we so all desperately need. And it's so important with my clients. I can so see the ones who aren't progressing with massage that there's a neurological piece and their nervous system needs to feel safe. And when you can start adding breath work or somatic work on the floor, it can get them through to that next piece. So I love that there's this new tool I can tell clients about. So yay, Rachel, thank you for teaching us something new. I'm really excited to learn more about this now.
Absolutely. And the thing is what you're saying, as intuitively, you can see your clients progressing with massage. I actually got really interested in thinking, how can we measure like improvement in this? Because there is the practitioner's internal data set, but how can we communicate that? How can the client actually also see that too? And so I decided to write an app that it has a heart rate monitor on the side of just typical blue light glasses. I like to say, like, there's nothing a woman can't do without a hot glue gun. So I tore apart a heart rate monitor. I stuck it on the side of glasses. So because Bluetooth doesn't measure underwater, so I had to lift the monitor up. So there's a heart rate monitor here. And then on my phone, the app that I built, it has a live graph of your heart rate as you're in the tub. And then I created an algorithm at the end. And so it takes into account your peak heart rate, your lowest heart rate, the recovery time between, and then the temperature of the water and how much you put, how much of your body that you put in the tub, because those things can make it a little less or more challenging depending on it. So it spits out a score between 0 and 100, and then people have something to track their progress, and just a little nugget of a little marker for them to see. And they love seeing that quick whoosh, like how quickly were they able to get their heart rate down, and maybe it felt longer than they thought, or maybe it felt shorter than they thought, and then they have something to go for next time. So I really empathize with that. We see the progress. How can we make the progress evident to the person, because they're what matters.
I love that. Yeah. And it's just, here it is, right? It's black and white. Here's where you are, here where you are now. And because sometimes you're experiencing it, but you can't feel the results right away. Like you need to like see it on paper, or have someone point it out to you. Look how you're more calmer, or whatever it is, right? Like, So
I
Rachel,
also we forget, right? We're
yeah,
so quick to forget, and we have a tendency to look for what's not working rather than for what's working in our lives. So it's actually great to have a visual where you can say, here, it's on paper, you can see it, or on the phone or whatever, right? That's
Right.
like it's visible, right? It's not
Right.
just made up. And good for you. That's really, really cool, because I've my friend who did a plunge, she said the biggest part was to get that it's just cold water. It's not
Mm.
the end of the world. It's not like, but there is that whole like, oh my God, no, 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 like all the fear or whatever comes up around it, and just know that it's just cold water,
Yes. Yes.
nothing else, right? But
I
like
say
I
that
know from walking into the lake or walking into the ocean, I'm like, no, thank you, no. And maybe I want, like, maybe one day I'll try, right? But right now it's like, no, not so sure.
the thing that I like to say is that there's no tiger.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
no tiger in the water. And sometimes it reminds us that, oh, okay, I'm likening this physiological response to what that big of a stressor would be like. And we actually can differentiate the two. But it's also really interesting that we are never really trained in terms of interoceptive sensitivity to not freak out about certain sensations.
Mm.
And I work a lot with individuals with anxiety and panic attacks, and retraining our ability to see those sensations of a racing heart or shortness of breath, but take a step back from them and be able to say, that is just a sensation.
Well, in truth, is there is never a tiger.
Right.
There never is a tiger. But we live in this world where our whole system goes on high alert, even though there is no, like, it's not, most of the things we're dealing with, most, not all of them, but most of the things we're dealing with is not a life and death threat.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's a mind threat, right?
Yes. That invisible hammer on above. And it's so interesting. I just opened a sleep workshop actually this past weekend with that same kind of idea, that our bodies don't know the difference between physical and mental
Yeah.
stress. We will physiologically react the exact same way, even if there's a physical threat present or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never to say that someone's source of stress, right, is illegitimate. The feelings of it, and the pressure and the anxiety and all the feelings and emotions that come up with it are incredibly valid. But can we allow ourselves to A, differentiate, and B, to be able to kind of reframe our thought approach to chronic stress and be able to just have the body see the little difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, so one of the things as a yoga teacher that I say is like we all walk around like tight asses, right? It's like a dog, a dog, when the dog is afraid, they tuck their tail.
Mm-hmm.
Humans walk around worried and afraid their whole life. So we tuck our tail always, right? There's always like, and we create a lot of the stressors, right? It's not that they're really out there. So we create the stressors, right? But yeah, it's that same concept, right? It's like there's no threat really. We create it in our minds, right? We hook, we latch. And one of the things I've been observing about that is that it is part of our survival as humans. Like it's our lizard brain. For survival, we need to look for the threats.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We cannot just walk, like it's human instinct. Walking through life without looking for threats is like, oh my goodness, no, that's not gonna, you know, we need to survive. So we need to look out for the threats, right?
Right.
So
100,000,000%. And what I think is so interesting, I really love looking into neuroplasticity just because it's so interesting to see how the brain structurally does change in the face of chronic stress and in the face of healing too. And so I actually just went to the International Trauma Conference. It happened to be in Boston. And there were a tremendous number of researchers who were highlighting brain structural changes from trauma. And what's interesting is the amygdala is the fear-based center of the brain. And we do see structural changes in the amygdala, in amygdala enlargement and a more active fear center of the brain. So stress can condition our brain to scan more rapidly, like a robot, like like in Star Wars, right?
well, yeah, but that's the neural pathways,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And that's so fascinating because the thoughts that we keep thinking, they create highways in our brain.
Mhm.
So let's say you have an association with a red car. So whenever you think
Yeah,
about the red car, it goes danger,
right.
danger, danger, right? And the more we think that thought, if we don't learn to stop them, right? And you do that with you probably that's part of the breathing, the ice bath, you know, like Christina and I, we do it in our own ways, right? It's like that stopping that, like, okay, that's
Right.
slow down for a second, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I also like to explain to people is we often think of our brains like a cell phone or a laptop that we can just like boom, like shut down. But from a neuroplasticity lens, our brains need a pathway and they need to know the way through that forest. And if there isn't that pathway, then we're kind of lost and like we will stay lost and freaking out. And then it's hard to sleep and everything. And
Yeah.
so the analogy that I actually like to give for the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic branches of the nervous system, and sympathetic being fight or flight, right? Your widened pupils, your dilated pupils, scanning your surroundings, your racing heart, your relaxed airways to let a higher volume of airflow through, blood shunted away from your digestive organs towards your extremities so you can go, versus parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system is rest and digest. And so narrow pupils, because you're not scanning as much, a slower heart rate, the the more blood and more resources being reallocated to digestive organs, but also processes that allow your cells to repair and rejuvenate and for us to increase our capacity. And so a lot of people kind of think of, oh, you're in one or the other, like a seesaw. And I like to remind us that that's not exactly true. That's not the best metaphor for this. It's more like a coiled spring. And so if you have a spring that's uncoiled, you're not stretching it, you're not compressing it, it's just at rest. That's your sympathetic nervous system kind of at like a 5 out of 10. And that's when we're at the gym, right? Or in the grocery store. You're scanning around, you're looking for the zucchini, so your eyes are like a little bit dilated. Your heart's pumping a little bit from pushing the grocery cart. But you're not running from that tiger, right? Our brains, again, need that pathway to be able to squish that spring and to be able to shut down the sympathetic a little bit and to be able to go into that other mode. But we can't squish that spring unless we know how. Oh, that's so all these reactions on Zoom. Unless we have an established pathway that we have practiced with repetition, so we know how to go down it. And so that's why when I work with a lot of people who have difficulty sleeping, and it's like, I don't want you to practice these things only in the mid at 2 a.m. when you like can't get back to sleep, when you're freaking out about your kids meeting your kid's teacher tomorrow morning and then getting to work and whatnot. I want you to practice it when you have a little bit more space, when you have a little bit more time, when life is actually a tiny bit easier. So then you are prepared for those bigger things.
Yeah. And it is a retraining, right? It's always a retraining. I like to say that we're so lazy with our brains, right? And with our minds, and it really, like, it is a training. Like when I did that workshop on neural pathways, they said you could actually just, you can start associating something different with that red car, right? But it takes an effort to do that, right? You have to keep playing with your mind until, right, you see the red car and you think of a beach. It's like, oh, thank you. That will be for me, right? The beach for me is like, oh yeah, thank you. But yeah, it is that reprogramming of that. And one of the things that, as you were talking, that came to mind for me is like, it's the tunnel vision and the overview. The tunnel vision and the overview. And we tend to get lost when we're in tunnel vision. Like when we then we drill down and we just, like, it becomes narrower, 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 and there's no exit. It's just challenging and dark and whatever. And then if we can take a breath and just look at the overview, right? As you were saying, like you don't see the tree for the forest, right? Because right, or however you say it. I don't know if it's the other way around in English, but yeah. so Rachel, if we really knew you, what would we know if we really knew you?
If you really, really knew me, you would know that I'm human too. And that I also, although I hold space and teach other people how to regulate their nervous systems, that I get dysregulated too. And that it is a constant effort that I do have to put in, and that running my own business, and that being able to I think, like everyone, like, set boundaries to like enjoy life. I I I am very open about saying, like, I work to live. I am not the type of business owner that lives to work. And so in September, I'm shutting down the business for a month and I'm going to Mongolia on a group trip. It's called epicexpeditions.co, and I'm going like falcon hunting or something like that. I don't remember the itinerary, but every 6 months to a year, I need a excuse my French, but I need a holy shit moment. And I haven't had one in a while. And so that's what I need. If you really knew me, I love to cook for people. And when I'm not cooking for people, something's off. And so something has been off recently. And so that's why we're cutting back hours. I love taking flights places. I love exploring. And I genuinely do believe and this is why I resonated so much with talking to you guys and connecting, and because just your opening line, I truly do believe you can learn something from every single human being. And I got in trouble for this with my parents when I was younger, but I love starting conversations with strangers. And you never know what people's story is. You never know what you can learn from someone. And that's very much how I got to be able to do the work that I do today.
I love that. I love having conversations with strangers, and sometimes it makes their whole day, and you're like, wow, just that 5 minute conversation, like, wow, like, thank you, guides, for inspiring me to have that conversation, right? Like, because I mean, I had a profound conversation with this older man in the Home Depot garden section one day, and it was just so lovely. And I'm like, I wasn't gonna talk to him at first, but then I was like, seriously, like, why are you being so stingy with your time? That was my thought in my head. And afterwards, I just left so inspired and just felt so good about myself and the whole, I don't know. Yeah, I just love those moments. So, mm-mm-mm.
Actually, that if you really knew me, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people, when you walk by someone, especially like when I'm walking my dog in the morning, and like you don't say good morning. Like, we
Me
are
too.
beings. You want someone to talk to you, and I also want someone to talk to me. We can acknowledge each other.
I live in an apartment building that has 18 floors, and I say hello to every person in the elevator, in the hallways. I don't care if they say hello back to me.
Yeah.
I pretend they say it under their breath. That's my little pretend, like,
Oh, I like that. I'm gonna steal that.
not they're ignoring me or whatever stories you can make up. I just pretend they're saying thank you back
Yes.
silently. It's fine.
Oh, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
So, Rachel, what would you say your superpower is?
It seems to be, from all of this work, finding the exact thought that is preventing someone from feeling safe. And that is so the first 15 minutes of my appointments, more like 30, let's be honest, I'm a chatty catty. We talk, and I love learning about my clients' day, and I love learning about kind of their what's bugging them, what's not. And I'm not a therapist, and so we do not go back in time. I do not ask about your trauma. I do not ask about anything. My opening question is, what brings you here? And suddenly it all comes out. But I'm very good at reading people, and I'm very good at hearing where they want to be, seeing where they are now, and from their personality, from their activities, from the boundaries they set or don't set, from the work that they do, like from all these little variables, I'm pretty quickly able to see what's holding someone back. And I've learned to do this in a way that invites the person to explore parts that might be necessary to go back with a therapist or whatnot. And then I'm like, talk to them, come back. and but then kind of saying, like, how can we reframe that? And so it might be easiest to give an example about this. And so this client has given me permission to share her story. So there's a client who she was came to me with profound shortness of breath. And she got it whenever she was stressed. And so I asked her, we did all these mechanics tests, and we had a lot of work to do in the mechanics, and that's where I start. But it was still coming up, and it was happening in the middle of the night. And so poor thing, she's getting awful sleep from all this. And so I asked her, I was like, okay, is it okay if you tell me just a little bit about, like, when's the first time you remember, like, just feeling your shortness of breath? Because this could be asthma related, right? It could be like anything related. And she told me about her experience growing up. And she said, like, she actually said that she grew up in like a pretty strict household, like a very religious family. And what was really interesting was, with that, just asking that singular question, she said it was when she was kind of reprimanded for sharing her opinion or being her full self, like in this community. And so the question that I asked her, without going further back or and digging into the story, because there's the somatically, there's a lot of therapists do a wonderful job like working with the story and whatnot. But the only question I really ask is, what did you need to hear in that moment when you were in those situations that would have made you feel like you belonged exactly as you were? And that's the thought. You are, insert whatever adjective, characteristic. That is my superpower of figuring that out for that singular sentence for people.
That's priceless. Beautiful.
Yeah, truly a gift.
Because we all long to hear certain things, right? We all long to hear that we're good and we're loved and we're powerful and it's okay to be ourselves, and hardly ever anyone gives us those sentences, right? Well, we need them most when we're children, but even as grown-ups, right? It's like, okay, then, life goes on. Come on, let's
Right.
move, right?
Right. And even as adults though, like I was even having a conversation with a family member, and we were talking about the expectations of body image that were handed down through other matriarchal lines elsewhere in the family. And like, what do you need to hear now that about those things that are still ingrained from then? And it's what I always tell people is, you might have not heard that then, you might have not heard that at the time, but because of neuroplasticity, you can wire that thought in to be more automatic in your brain and to have your body operate from that. And so when you are able to have that thought, those words connect to your body's response about what it would be like to have that. And I like to tell people, the reframe might sound ridiculous to you. Like it might feel like so far off. But if one cell in your body, one cell believes it, then it's worth holding on to. And it's worth us taking steps towards what it would be like to say the full meaning of that.
Yeah. It only takes just a little nothing to just exponentially change the whole trajectory of a life. So yeah, beautiful. So tell us about the time you took a chance for love, and not necessarily romantic. When did you take a chance for love?
Can it be romantic?
Absolutely.
It can be, absolutely. It's just like, when we say chance for love, some people think it's just romantic, and there's so many more chances that we take. So
yeah.
right.
Well, I'll even give two. I'll tell you about my husband and I'll tell you about my dog. So, I had been previously engaged. I got engaged when I was 24, and I was engaged for 4 years. And I broke that engagement off living in Argentina. And I had to move back home, pack up my suitcases, come shelter kind of back at home, get my life back together back in Boston. And I was there was a very rough set of several months from there, when you're healing, when you're repairing, when you're putting all of your pieces back together. And when I was ready to start dating again, I met my now, of course, he's now my husband Jesse, and we just met on the apps. And I remember we went out to dinner, and I remember telling him, I was like, just so you know, like, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be in Boston. Like, I will probably be gone next week. Because I knew I wanted to go to Mexico. Like, and I was buying a one-way ticket, and I was like, I have done me plus someone else and gone on someone else's agenda for a very long, for my entire young adulthood. Like, I am doing me right now. And he was like, all right, cool, whatever. We'll just enjoy each other's company. And so we did. And then when it was time for me to go, I was like, all right, see ya. And then a couple months later, we stayed in touch and everything, and he came to visit. And then before I knew it, a couple months later, he came to visit again. And then a couple months later, I went back to visit him. And but what I like to say is it was like I was stiff arming him. Like, I was like just trying to keep him at a distance, because I was like, I just want to be a strong, independent woman for as long as and just learn about myself and who I am and whatnot. And so I did. I learned so much about myself in that amount of time. But this guy kept popping up. And so finally, when I felt intuitively that my time in Mexico was coming to an end, I was like, you know what? I remember I was at this lagoon, and it was this beautiful turquoise blue lagoon in Tulum. And it was a couple friends and we spent like a whole day there. And I had this weird feeling that I was like connected to Jesse. Like, I felt like I was having a conversation. Like, it just felt like he was lurking like close by. And it was so weird. And I didn't have any cell phone service at that lake. And so I wasn't going to text him or anything like that. And this had been a point in our relationship where we were both kind of like I hadn't told him I was probably cooling down on Mexico and was probably ready to leave, but we had been not in a super close point in our relationship. But it was so weird, because that day I felt like he was right here, like, and he was just super close, and I was having a conversation with him. So I get home, I check my phone, and I have this long email from him. And in that moment, I remember throwing I was just in such a disbelief. I remember I threw my phone across the room, because it like felt like too hot. It was I was just in disbelief. And I remember, like, mentally, I was like, I am now going to put my arm down, and I'm going to let myself really be present with this person. And so I'm a big believer that sometimes the thing that you're looking for comes when you're not looking for it and or fighting against it. And so that's one story. And then the second story is my dog. Her name is Cardi B. She's a pit bull mix. She's a rescue. And I had been really after I graduated high school, I coerced my parents into adopting a 8-month-old Bernese Mountain Dog. And my family had never had a dog, but my best friend from high school, she had one, and she said that wherever they got it from, the sister was still left. They had gotten the boy. And so I remember we pull up to this like pound, and I just bombarded my mom's phone with pictures of this tiny little fuzzy Bernese Mountain Dog, and made up a little white lie back then that there was another family there who wanted to take her, but we could put a hold on her and come back a couple days later. And so my mom, just being like this wonderful, dear, caring woman who she is, who wanted us to be happy and wanted us to have this dog, she said, okay. Problem is we hadn't asked my dad this at all. And so we go home, and it's Father's Day in June. And my brother and I were just kind of sitting there. We're all cheery, cheery, cheery. And we tell my dad, we're like, hey, guess what? Like, we're getting a dog. And he had never grown up with animals or anything like that. And he was like, how big's it gonna get? And we were like, 100, 150 pounds. Like, we don't know. It could be longer, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I was promising like I would train it and everything like that right before I went to college. And the way it ended up is that dog, Chloe, she only walked with my dad. She would lay down in the front of the yard and she would not get up. And that was her. So I had that dog for a while. So I missed one, but I always loved pitties because they were so badly treated by so many other people in the world. And I knew there were a lot for adoption. And our neighbor had a white pit bull, and I was like, that would be a pretty dog to have. So I'm in Tulum, I was meeting some new friends, and this one girl, she said, hey, there's this beautiful white pit bull that I saw who's up for this Tulum Animal Rescue Organization is trying to help someone adopt her. Why don't you go look at the dog? And I was like, okay, sure. Like, I'm just gonna go look. And so a couple days later, I go, and there's this sweetheart of a baby girl. She's white and she has these brown splotches on her, but she's chained up outside this rundown house in Mexico. And she had lived that way on a 12-foot metal chain for a year and a half. And what struck me was how sweet this dog was for being treated so badly. And she just wanted love. She just wanted love. And so it was 11/11, that it was November 11th. And I remember Petco had just opened in Tulum, like literally that day. And so I was like, I don't have anything. Like, I don't have anything for this dog at my house. Like, I will come back and get her tomorrow. So I like run to Petco, and I'm a very extroverted person, and I can be dramatic when needed. And in that moment, I felt I went in, I was so overwhelmed, and I was like, I need everything. Like, what do I need? I need everything. Just tell me what to get. So carts full of stuff, and I brought it all home. And then the next day I got Cardi B, and she had been named Bully before, but I wanted to give her a sassy name. And so those are the two love stories, because that dog got me through. I mean, they're best friends. Pets are best friends, right? And so that dog has gotten me through a lot of challenging moments.
You should not go look at the dog if you don't want to get a dog.
I know.
Ever.
Ever.
You know you're never just looking. You know it's coming home.
Indeed. Yep. It was so funny. I just remember the first day I brought her in, she was looking at herself in the mirror, and she had like never looked at herself in the mirror, and she was just so confused about it. It was just so cute. And I was like, oh, you're perfect. I don't care what you do. But
yeah, they are perfect.
yeah.
The funny thing is, if we could just treat people like we do our dogs, you know what I mean? Like, we give them the benefit of the doubt, and they just, but we don't often give people the same benefits. So maybe that's something I could take away from this. I could treat more people like I do dogs.
Yeah.
I did love that when you're talking about, your relationship with your husband, though. I think it's really powerful when you can, know that you have the strong attraction, but know it's not the right timing, and give each other space to find each other. It only makes for a more profound basis for your relationship when you can just be like, oh, that's what you need to do right now. Yeah, you should go do that.
Yeah. And I had never, I had just never really advocated kind of for myself in that, like, that strongly for that long. And so it was so interesting just how hard that intuitive feeling struck me when it was the right time. And it was almost like a light switch went on. It was like, it's okay, it's time.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. But for him to have someone in your corner that just gives you the space and he's there, but he's trusting that I just love the whole story. Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yay. So what fills you up? What recharges your batteries so that you have it to give back to all the people you love to take care of?
One-to-one quality time with people. I sometimes I can get overwhelmed in groups. I'm an extrovert, but my heart lies with really deep connection and recharging with other people. And then I will also say like full big belly laughs, like the laughs that you get with people when your face hurts and you like kind of are crying, but you don't know if you really are. And I live for those moments. And I think what also fills me up is nourishment in the form of the type of love and care from others that makes you feel cared for, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a hug from a friend, a text from one of my friends checking up saying, hey, I know you've been really busy, like, are you good? Just a hug from my mom. Or just any of that quality time, cuddles with the dogs, cuddles with the whole family, my husband. So it's I think we need that give and take of energy. I think, and I would be curious to know too, as practitioners, like you do give and give and give so much, right? And so you can't keep giving if you never refuel yourself. And so I have gotten very conscious of my battery kind of these days. And I love reminding people that you don't have one battery for work, one battery for your social life, and one battery for, I don't know, like your kids. Like it is one system. And so we do have to manage it appropriately. And so I will say sometimes what fills me up is sitting on the couch and reading a full book with no one and a cup of tea and just a blanket.
Good stuff.
There's so many things, right? It's like, but we have to be aware. Alison Armstrong, in her work on gender and relationships, she talks about there's certain things that fill you up for certain times, right? So if you need a full tank, let's say, right, maybe a walk by the ocean fills you up for 2 days. Maybe a plunge in cold water fills you up for a week. Maybe a conversation with a friend or a good meal fills you up for half an hour. So you need to know all of that so you can keep refilling, right? There's always that, okay, oh, well, maybe not half an hour, maybe for 3 hours, right? But then you need something else to fill you for the rest of the day. So you are always at your best and always taking care of you.
100,000,000%. And Kristen Holmes, she's the head of global performance at Whoop, which is a fitness tracker, but she's a really great psychophysiologist, and she has coined this term called demand match. And so with demand match, it's okay, there's a task and your capacity has to rise to the occasion for there to be demand match. And obviously for demand, brushing your teeth requires fewer resources than giving a keynote presentation.
Yeah.
But in order to keep that capacity high enough to match demand throughout the day, she likens it to a metronome, right? It's kind of got to flick back and forth between something that uses energy and resources, and then a couple minutes of something that restores it, and just going back and forth. And a lot of times we aren't going back and forth. We're not taking those little itty bitty moments, nuggets throughout the day to recharge. And then we are so depleted. We're running on empty. And that's when our mood, our patience, I even ask clients about attitude, and they laugh every single time at that question. They're like, I haven't considered my attitude towards anything, but it is something I measure and I track every week.
It's a good one. Yeah.
It is, like I know when I'm, when I'm tired or depleted, I will blow up. Well, I know better in the meantime, but I know that it gets to the point where it takes a lot, right? And then I have to remove myself from the situation, and that's okay too, right? But yeah, it's a learning process for what we need every moment. So, Rachel, if you had a magic wand and you could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
I could give I could give, let's see, any quality. It would be a strong sense of belonging, exactly as we are. I think so much strife comes from experiences that have made people feel like they don't belong. And the idea that we do that to each other is really sad. But there's also so much hope and potential in realizing that perhaps maybe the things that make us not one person's cup of tea are actually the things that are so beautiful and so unique and so wonderful about ourselves, and that can actually give us an even greater sense of belonging in the world. And I say the word belonging because I think from belonging branches out self-worth, self-esteem, and inner safety from that. But when I'm talking to people and hearing about the challenges that they're going through, you could be worried that you're not doing a good enough job at your job, right? And that you don't belong there because you can't handle it. It could be, I have new moms that are worried that they're not going to be a good enough mom or good enough parent. Having business owners that are like, I don't know if I can do it. Right? And so it's this sense of, no, you are on the right path. You have everything that you need inside of you. And the only thing that you need to keep propelling that forward is to keep lighting your own flame.
Last question. What do you want people to remember about you?
Oof. What do I want people to remember about me? That's a tough one. I want people to remember that I tried to, or that I always try to teach people how to teach themselves to feel safe. To and I think if there is anything that I do want people to remember about me, it's the idea of safety and the idea of psychological and physiological safety, because that if we can't feel safe, that is a hurdle that is preventing us from reaching our entire potential. And so I do not care how people get themselves to feeling safe. There are so many beautiful modalities in that, but that is the thing that I want people to say, like, do I? Or like, am I confusing familiarity for safety? Like, how many times do we get ourselves stuck in situations or we keep doing the same thing just because it's what we always do, not what we want? And so if there's one thing I want people to remember, it's asking yourself, like, do I truly feel safe? And if not, what can I do to change that?
Amen.
I was going to say, yay! So, Rachel, you talked about your business before. Is there anything else you want to add? Do you want to let our listeners know how they can find you? And it's all going to be in the notes, but just go ahead and do that. Anything else you want to add about what you said about your business or how to find you?
Perfect. Yes, of course. So my website is icebathboston.com, and on it you can find information about our one-to-one appointments as well as our monthly group workshops. We do in-person workshops right here in our Needham office, and they include breath work. They include a little bit of breathing mechanics, lying down, putting on a nice comfy eye mask with a blanket, and being just guided through a breathing journey so you can release anything that you don't want and allow your body to recharge. And it also includes ice baths as well. We also do a lot of corporate wellness. So I'm hired by companies to come in and give a unique corporate wellness experience. If you really want, I can bring the tubs too. They are portable. They do inflate. And when people are interested in working with me, first, a lot of times you might already be in therapy. You might already be on medication. You just want other tools that you can pull from your back pocket to be able to have. And so my approach is super complementary to anything that people are already doing. And there I see all sorts of people. I see college students with panic, suffering from panic attacks, CEOs and entrepreneurs who are just want a weekly recharge and a way to keep themselves grounded, individuals with dysfunctional breathing patterns who have been referred to me from ENTs and GIs. So a lot of different angles that we can come into this work, and that's why I love working in a one-to-one approach, because this hour and a half is all about you and what you want to get from it to help you reach your next level.
I'm enrolled.
Yep. I don't know when I get to Boston next, but I will definitely be checking it out next time I'm in the area.
Yes, I would love to have you guys. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah. But in the meantime, I am really going to start trying to introduce more cold into my daily life. So I'm going to take it on.
I love that. Quick tip, especially for anyone who's listening too. You don't have to go into a cold shower. You can, shower's the easiest. So do your regular warm, whatever shower. And then take a nice big breath, flip it to cool, doesn't have to start on super cold. And it doesn't have to hit your head. It can be chin down, chest down. And the way you want to breathe is the same thing I teach in the ice bath, is a long, slow exhale, as if you're blowing out birthday candles. And you're seeing how much longer every time can I make that exhale. And I like to count my breaths. I like to count, maybe I'm doing 5 breaths. And then the next week I try to go up to 6, and then the next week 7, etc. But start small and like baby step it up a little bit at the same time.
Yay! I love the tips. It makes it really accessible for people. So everyone get out there and try cold baths or showers or whatever you're inspired to, or whatever work you want to do for your nervous system regulation. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know I am inspired to try some new things and add some new tools to my self-care, and I hope everyone else is too. If you're interested in checking out Rachel in the Boston area, please go look at her website. If you love this podcast today, please share with your friends. Please leave us a review, and check out Rachel's information in the notes, or Martina and my Linktree info is there too. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And please remember, you are extraordinary and you rock. Until next time, have a wonderful day.
Bye for now. Rachel, you want to say goodbye?
Yes. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.